Hello, Shumsy here, and this is just a build update. I've reached level 100 on this character a few days ago, and I'm here to give you my thoughts and some criticisms, if there are any. I will be coming up with my thoughts as I go through the video. As always, this is not an edited video. If you're not someone who likes that, you can click off. That is up to you. The music is provided by NCS, and there will be a link in the description. So let's start the video. What am I here to talk about? As the previous video states, this is a Righteous Fire Inquisitor. I've min-maxed a lot in this character, and I will be showcasing how to craft everything except the scepter, because the scepters are kind of hard to craft, and just buying one would be a lot better than crafting one. If you want to craft one, it's a very long process of fracturing and re-rolling until you hit the desired mods. Not worth. It's just easier to buy a +2 one and just call it a day. Now, some thoughts on the character before I show you how to craft all the gear and how to play the character. Obviously, the character is an Inquisitor. It utilizes the new node of Pious Path. Now, a common question that is asked a lot is why just not play Marauder, either Chieftain or Juggernaut. I myself am a Juggernaut main. I love playing Juggernaut. I feel the ascendancy is just amazing. But in terms of Righteous Fire, I believe it has fallen off, especially against Chieftain, and now against Inquisitor as well. Now, comparing Chieftain and Inquisitor, and I will not be comparing Juggernaut just because Juggernaut, it's good. It's just that you really want damage, and Chieftain has both survivability and more damage than a Juggernaut. So I will be comparing most of the things to Chieftain and to Inquisitor. Now, Chieftain is a lot more tankier. Let's get that out of the way. Even with less total net life, you can get with very good gear, like with very good gear, a lot more expensive than what most Righteous Fire players go for. Is like most players go for the triple comms, so like a comms heart and the 2 comms way rings. That's what most Marauder players go for. But to be able to get to higher life totals, you would need to run Vermilion rings and roll them very well. So Chieftain has this node here, which if paired with this notable here, makes it so you basically take 50% of cold and lightning as fire, and you also have Fizz taken as fire. Means anytime you get hit, you basically take fire damage, which procs this 50% increased life recovery all the time. That is really good. You also have a unique cover in Ash every time you hit a unique enemy, and you have a +1 endurance charge. That is nice. But the problem is you have to run a Calm's Heart. It kills an entire 6 link of damage. This build does not have that issue. It keeps a lot of the tankiness, and it runs a 6 link, meaning it has more damage. It has a much better elemental overload uptime because of this node here. It takes less elemental damage and deals more elemental damage. So this, the damage is very comparable to these two. Very comparable. But if the Righteous Fire damage is comparable, not the actual single target damage that the Inquisitor can dash out in terms of Chieftain. I would recommend playing Chieftain for anyone that is new to Righteous Fire and that does not know what kind of gear you need for Righteous Fire to progress such a character. For any more experienced player and for someone who just really wants to play Inquisitor, you can play this build. It is very easy to gear. Most of my gear, except the scepter, is self-crafted, either crafting it myself through harvest or buying harvest crafts. Everything except the scepter is self-crafted or crafted through harvest. Now this is the tree. For anyone that is new to the build, does not know how the build works, I would recommend watching the original creators of this build's video, which is Pox. I can never claim credit for this build because if he had not made his initial video, I would never have been playing this character. So if you're someone who is on a tight budget and just wants to and really wants to play this build, you should watch his initial video. The tree goes somewhere over here and grabs all these double life and energy shield nodes and goes into assassin for damage over time. Go watch his video, good video, he explains stuff nice. But I'm mostly here to talk about my version of the character, and after showing this to Pox, he swapped and he said for a much bigger budget this is the better tree because you also scale endurance charges and you run a small cluster jewel with enduring composure. And I will say that once again, the small cluster jewel is called, it has armor and it has enduring composure. It is what generates your endurance charges, but I've since upgraded into a chest piece which has the same text. It has gain 1 endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. This saves me an additional 2 points and it grants me a jewel socket. So that is pretty good. I paid 60 exiles for this chest piece, which has fizz damage reduction, the endurance charge, explode, hits taken as fire, and recover 6% of life on kill. You might be saying the chest piece is not done, you need life recovery. I disagree honestly. This 6% of life on kill is very good for like juiced up maps where you just have a lot of mobs around you. My health just goes up and down every time I go into a juiced up map. Obviously the life recovery would be better for bosses, but it's up to you what you want to do. I would love to have the life recovery and just say I want to focus on bosses, forget about mapping. Now I have the wrong cluster jewel setup here for bossing, as I've completely transitioned into mapping. This is a cooked alive and burning bright, cooked alive, and fan the flames burning bright, and this is just for capping my chaos resistance. Now this is an in-game, you have a fizz damage converted to fire and you need a flammability on hit anywhere. This makes it so with an explosion chest, every single time you kill a pack, it explodes, applying ignite to everything, and then Herald of Ash explodes again. A really nice playstyle. It is really satisfying if you're someone who wants to do just that. I do not recommend playing Inquisitor then you can play Elementalist, because Elementalist does that way better. Elementalist is something Pox right now is currently leveling just to test it out, so he can talk about it more openly. As he says, he is doing a non-golem variant. Elementalist has your hits always ignite, so every time you explode something they will instantly ignite. You do not need like the fizz converted to fire and stuff. So if you want, I will leave Captain Lance's Elementalist Autobomber guide in the description once again. I've left it in the previous video, but I will do it once again because a lot of people want to play this version of the character, and I recommend playing Elementalist instead of Inquisitor. But Inquisitor is an all-rounder. He is much tankier than Elementalist in every single way, much easier gains recovery, and is a lot better at bossing because he is tanky. If you're someone who wants a tanky character, this is what I recommend. Now, there is not really much else to talk about the character. I will not be showing any gameplay in this video because it is pretty easy to say that I have cleared everything in this game. I've done Cirrus Awakening 9, I've done Cirrus Awakening 8. Between Cirrus 8 and 9, I would say there is absolutely no difference. I haven't felt a single difference between 8 and 9. I've done double Guardians, every single Guardian. I've done Cortex, I've done Feared, I've done all the invitations, I've done everything there is to be done in the game. I've done even 100% Delirious maps. Not the easiest, but I've still done them. Even though this build was never designed for that type of content, I've still done it. Now, this is part of the video that I will be showcasing how to craft every single piece of gear of mine. Obviously, if this is just the non-implicit modifiers, like it's up to you which base you find and which base you want. If you want to have a energy shield base, that is up to you. I've decided to go pure armor on most of my gear, and I would recommend going armor for your helm, because if you go energy shield, that will make it very harder to roll because there is a mana prefix. So go armor on your helm, and the rest is up to you. And also go a cold and lightning implicit two-tone boots, because you need a lot of cold and lightning in this build, because you lose 50% of it from the Tempered by War keystone. Now, I will pull up a site called Craft of Exile here. In this site, you can basically simulate the crafting of gear in the game. The first thing, obviously, everyone wants to know is how to craft the helm. The helm, obviously, is expensive. It is not something you can just cheaply buy. The bases are not that expensive, and you do not need a level 86. You can just buy a level 84, which is currently 5C. And you can either buy a helm that is blank, you can buy with an enchant, or you can buy with Conch Effect and the Essence mod, which is Essence of Horror. So what you can do is just do Essences of Horror till you hit Conch Effect, or you hit burning damage. Now, if you want to have both, hitting Conch Effect is a start, but hitting burning damage is something that will get you into red maps. So you, as we hit it here, we hit Conch Effect with some acceptable stuff. This is acceptable stuff. Obviously the strength is very bad. The strength is just probably the worst thing you could get. So in my opinion, what I would do here is probably just try to maybe annul the strength somehow, because the strength really just bricks whatever you're trying to do on the suffixes. So I will try to maybe annul the strength. Obviously I hit the Conch Effect, we go again. This is going to take some money. As I said, these helmets are not cheap. If you find it cheaper to buy a Suck the Gems, deal more elemental damage and Conch Effect with anything that is removable and suffixes, then go for it. This is something I would keep. If I hit burning damage, this is something I would keep. And as I play through the game, you do not need both to clear maps. As I go through the game, as I play, I would just do remove and keep suffixes till I hit conk effect. Through harvest, I would just run harvest and hopefully hit conk effect. This is very hard to hit, but it's not impossible. This, even though it's not the perfect helm, would be something to start from as we hit conk effect, and this is something that can get you into some very hard content. These helmets, as I said, are probably the hardest things to craft. So we just craft life here, and I believe we are done. There is not really much you can craft. If you want to craft the fizz damage taken as fire, that is up to you. That is a good fizz damage reduction mod that you can have on here. But I would say this helm is pretty much done. If you hit something that is removable with harvest, then obviously remove it. But this version of the helm that I hit does not, but I would still use this if I was just on a tight budget. This has cost me about, in horrors, 300 chaos, which is about 3 exiles right now, and as I'm playing through the game, this can either take you 1, or it can take you this many, or even more. Keep remove suffixes. You do not need conk effect to clear the game. That just makes it so you take less time on bosses than you would usually. Now the helm, I would say, is done. Now let's move on to something else. Let's move on to a chest piece. Now chest pieces, you would think, are hard. How would I go about crafting a explosion chest? Very easy, actually. You just buy like a warlord. You buy a warlord chest piece with these. They're everywhere, right? Just pull up another tab here. I'll just go search a astral plate with 6 white sockets that are linked, and I will say warlord. This is what I want. The cheapest one currently goes for 1.5x, and then they go up 1.7. Not really something that is that expensive. Now from here on, we will be using fossils, and we will be using 1 socket resonators with, please find it, scorched fossils. Yes, so 1 socket resonators with scorched fossils till we hit T1 physical damage taken from hits as fire. This is one thing you can do if you want to. This is one thing you can do, is just to do the fizz damage taken from hits as fire till you hit T1. That is one way of crafting your chest piece. Till you hit T1. And as I'm saying, I will be showing the full process of crafting the gear. So there you go, I hit T1 fizz damage taken from hits as fire. All the other mods are fine, except the strength. So what I would do to save this is either reroll, keep prefix, or just reroll without a influenced modifier. So probably cheaper to just reroll, because this mod is really not that rare, so I would just reroll. So fizz damage taken from hits as fire. There you go. Now what do you do from here? You grab I don't have it right now, but you grab an Awakener orb and you just go on PoE.trade, you search enemies you kill explode, dealing the maximum life as fizz damage, and you just search that. Not bleeding enemies, please, just enemies you kill. Okay, so enemies you kill explode. This is something you're searching for. Now beware, before buying any of this, is that an Awakener orb, what it does, takes one influence modifier from one item and slaps it onto the other. So this item and all the others, as I'm looking here, all have 2 influence modifiers. So what you would have to do is when you buy one of these items is go into harvest and do a remove a random lightning modifier. Once you do that, this item will not have any other influence modifiers. You also have to check if there are any influence modifiers on the suffixes. Do not buy an item that has influence modifiers on suffixes. That is just going to be a longer hassle of removing. Now that is one way of crafting a fizz damage taken as from hits taken as fire. But now you might be wondering, how the hell do I have such a chest piece? Now, to be honest, I have no clue how this person created this chest piece. Perhaps he got lucky, perhaps not. But I devised a way of crafting this endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently and enemies you killed explode. Now this is a bit of RNG and this is a lot more expensive. So if you just want a fizz damage taken as fire and the explode mod, then you just take both of these, you Awakener orb them together and you get your item. From there on you just craft a maximum life as extra energy shield and the prefixes are done. And then you can just do remove add keep prefixes until you hit suffixes that you say are acceptable. Now how do you craft a plus, no not plus, but endurance charge gained on it every second? The same way you craft this, it's just it's a lot more RNG because there's more slots and prefixes that it can hit, which are bad. So it's up to you if you want to do that, but I will show a way how to do it anyways. So we take like an annul orb, right? Now the way I would do this is perhaps just chaos spam until I hit the endurance charge mod. This mod isn't that common, so it will take you some rerolls. So let's say this is what I hit it on, right? I'll just quickly slap on the mod. It's a suffix. So let's say this is what you hit. For the sake of this video, so it does not take that long. It will take you on average a lot more than 27 chaos. So let's say this is what I hit. Now the same thing as before, you buy an explodey chest, you remove the lightning, and you Awakener orb them together. You hope that whatever you hit in the prefix is removable with harvest. If not, then I have warned you, the item is probably bricked. The item is probably bricked. But if you hit something that is removable, let's say this is the item you are left with. Let's say you get strength, which is bad, but it's better than hitting something in prefixes that is bad. So let's craft in prefixes a explode mod. Let's say you hit explode and you hit something like, I don't know, it's something like armor. Let's say you hit armor. Obviously you just go to harvest, you annul armor, remove defense, it's gone. Now to finish this chest piece and get the fizz damage taken as fire, you just go to crafting bench, you craft anything, just the block suffixes. Let's say you craft T1 intelligence, no, T3 intelligence, and you just go into harvest again. You do augment fire. If you do not hit T1, so let's say I hit T2, you just do remove add till you hit T1, and then you just go into bench, you craft the betrayal mod, and your chest piece is basically done. There's not really much you can do to it besides doing augment life, perhaps getting this mod, which is nice, but if you do not want that mod, this is an expensive part. But if you want something better, you do keep reroll life until you hit T1 life recovery rate or T2, whatever is acceptable to you. But as you can see, I'm spending a lot of money here trying to get T1 life recovery, and it's just not happening. If you're someone who wants T1 life recovery, it is up to you. So it has taken me about over 30 replaced life, which I believe is currently 1.5 to 2x, which is a lot. So it is up to you if you want that. I would say this is a very easy explanation on how to craft such a chest piece. It is really not expensive, and it will take you some money, but it will not take a lot of money as what people are currently selling it for. Now the only reason I paid 60 exalts for mine is because of that 4% additional physical damage reduction. That alone was enough to make me want to pay a lot of money for that. Now, the next item we will be talking about are the gloves. The gloves, I choose complete armor, just so I do not have a mana prefix. These are the gloves. Mine are 20 quality and level 86. Now, how do you craft this? There is a few ways to craft these gloves. Now, if you want your dexterity roll to be on your gloves, it is up to you how you want to do that. You just take a dexterity essence and you just roll until you hit something that is acceptable, such as a resistance. Either a T2 or T1 resistance, whatever you want, whatever you feel is acceptable, you just stop there. Now I would, because I'm a greedy person, I would just keep rolling this until I hit something that is T1. Or I wouldn't, depending on my budget. Okay, perhaps this is something I would keep. From here on, you might be wondering, how do you finish these gloves? If you're someone who wants dexterity, obviously this is going to be a lot harder to craft. But if you're someone who does not, it's going to be easier. I will be showing both ways for this item. with and without decks. So here on, you just go to harvest, you do resists, you change cold to fire, and then you do remove, you remove attack. And then you craft from here. If you don't have, you just go into bench, you go to prefixes, and you craft fire damage to attacks. Now where is that? Am I not in bench? Can I even craft fire damage to attacks on gloves? Apparently not. For some reason you can't craft fire damage to attacks, so this is gonna require 2 augments, because I'm pretty sure you can hit fire damage to attacks. There you go. Oh, we forgot to do hunter here. I forgot to do a hunter base. So let's just this is not how you would do it. This is not how you would do it. Forgive me. Let's just, this was the item before we did anything, right? And now let's actually remove the fire damage to attacks. Let's say this was a hunter base from the start. So we do augment fire, we hit fire damage to attacks again, and we just do augment fire again, and the item is basically done on the suffixes. Here on, you just go remove attack, you go resists, you change fire to either lightning or cold, because you really do not need fire in this build, you have so much fire resistance. So we change fire, let's say, to lightning, and then you just, maybe, as you play, you remove keep suffix till you hit something that is acceptable. There you go, T1 life. And from here on, what you want to do is up to you. The gloves are basically done. Now, for someone who does not want dexterity on their gloves, here is also a showcase of how to craft those gloves without dexterity. Now what you just do is you grab a resistance, either chaos resistance or cold or lightning resistance, whatever you need. So let's say you need cold resistance or you need chaos, whatever. Just go until you hit something that is acceptable. So let's say this is what you hit, right? This is already much easier thing to hit. You can keep rerolling until you hit 2 T1s, which is going to be a bit more expensive, but at the end it's going to pay off. Or you go until you hit chaos resistance. Or even better, you can roll chaos resistance itself. You just roll chaos resistance till you hit a second resistance that is acceptable. This is a bit more expensive, but you need chaos resistance capped in this build. Now this is a perfect thing. Even though this is T2, this is really good. So what do you do from here? You just craft any prefix here. Let's say we craft Armour T3. This is perfect. What you just do here is you just go to harvest and you just augment fire, and you will get it either T1 or T2. Now, if you're someone who wants T1, and you hit T2, unfortunately, there is a long process of how to guarantee without spending a lot of money. So you go into harvest again. You change the fire resistance to any other resistance, let's say cold, and you go back to harvest into annuls and you remove fire. This will remove fire, and you go back into harvest, change the fire back to change the cold back to fire, and you do augment again until you hit T1. That is how you would do. So now you have a pretty good item, good suffixes, right? But the prefixes are crappy. They're really doo-doo. So now you just reroll and keep suffix till you hit something that is acceptable to you. Whatever that might be, that is solely up to you. This is something that I would say is acceptable for me. I hit T3 life. This is pretty acceptable for me. So I would say the gloves are pretty much done here. The boots. Let's go into the boots. The boots are very expensive to craft. You do not have to run the +3 boots. If you're someone who's on a tighter budget, you will just have to run more Molten Ones marks. And that is pretty much it. If you're someone who wants this build for much cheaper, do not make these boots. They're very expensive. You can just run more Molten Ones marks. So let's craft the boots that I'm currently wearing for anyone that is wondering how I managed to craft these boots. This is an evasion and energy shield base. With obviously, yeah, actually, I did not use this is what I started off with. Let's just get out of the way. This is what I started off with. Now, if you're someone who really wants 35 movement speed, you can. What I did is used a T1 Essence of Sorrow and just rolled, let's say you roll something like this. This is really good, but at the same time it's not, because you have stun and block recovery. So what I would do here is perhaps use a annulment orb and try to remove this. This is still fine. The item is bricked, basically. We go back to rerolling. If you're someone who wants 35 movement speed, you will be rerolling till you hit 35 and the dex, or you hit 35 and with one of the two resistances if you want, but I needed dex, so this is what I rolled with. Now if I needed dex and I hit this, I would be keeping it. So the process I went through these boots, that's how I crafted these beautiful resistances, is while they're not influenced, you go into harvest, and let's say you need lightning. This is what I hit, this is what I go off with. If this was lightning, I would just be doing cold and vice versa. You do lightning and then you just remove add lightning till it's T1. That's how I did it. There's really no cheaper way of hitting whatever you need. As I said, these boots are expensive. Now, you go whatever this is, it's either life or defense. If it's life, you better remove the life because the movement speed is a lot more expensive to recraft. So let's remove defense or life. And this is what we're left with. Now we take a Crusader Orb. We hope to hit something that is removable. Fortunately, this is removable with Harvest, even if it's something that is not. So let's say you hit something that is not, which there are mods. There are mods that are just not removable. If you hit this, then you're in heaven. But there are also mods that I believe are not removable at all. And I just apparently just can't seem to hit them. So let's forget I ever said anything about that. So let's say this is what we hit. Plus 2 lightning gems. We just leave the plus 2 level of socketed lightning gems as it is. Whatever you hit, you leave. You leave it on. And then you just go augment fire. Now, if you hit T1, you're good. If you hit T2, go into another process of harvest of remove add. This can take you a while. As I said, this could take you a while. It took me 1 try, so I got pretty lucky. I got really lucky, it took me just 1 try. So now what do you do from here? You can either keep these as it is, remove the lightning gems and just craft life, but I took it a step further and did a Maven Orb. Now I succeeded in the first try as well, really lucky by the way. I succeeded in the first try, but you might not. So what do you do from here if you do not succeed? You go again. You just augment fire, hit T1, there you go. And you just do another Maven Orb. You failed again. You augment fire, Maven Orb, till you hit T3. I mean T0 basically. As I said, very expensive boots. This took a lot of chaos. I would recommend if crafting these boots if you're just someone who really wants to min-max. Now, boots are done. Now you just go to harvest, you do augment life, or you can craft life, that's up to you. And just remove add life. You hit either T2 or T1. I believe I hit T1. Obviously I kept it. The boots are done. If you have any questions other than what I explained here on the boots, stop by the stream, say hello and ask your question. Now let's move on to another item. Let's move on to the rings. The rings, pretty easy. I would recommend using vermilion rings, obviously. Let's go into jewelry, ring, and go into vermilion ring. And these are warlord rings. So what we do here again is we either use a essence. If you need dexterity, you use a dexterity essence till you hit 1 good resistance. 1 good resistance. Other than the one you're rolling. So let's say you need dexterity. You need an open suffix. Let's say this is what you hit. You just craft life here. And you go into harvest. And then you do augment caster. From there on, you just do remove at caster till hit flammability. Your ring is done. don't really need to do much else here. Then remove the attack, because this fire damaged attacks will break your EE. So you just do remove attack, and the ring is basically done. You can now do remove the crafting mod, then you augment life, you remove add life, so it's T1, and then you craft a very good craft, which is non-channeling skills or channeling skills have reduced mana, reduced mana required, and the ring is done. The same process goes for the other ring. Obviously a lot easier if you want just double resistances on your rings. Let's say you want double resistances, or you just want chaos. Well, it's gonna be actually harder because essences on rings give damage. Haha, forgot about that. So the best process of actually crafting such rings, if you want double resistances, is probably just either doing fossils or doing like harvest. Just whenever you find a harvest with the reroll stuff, you put in the ring and you just reroll. So let's say you want chaos and you want, I don't know, let's say you want cold. Rigid. We just do this. This is acceptable. I would keep this first roll. So now we just go back to harvest. We remove the attacks. There's just nothing you can do. There is more than one attack. Move the attack. And then you just craft augment caster again. Hit T1 flammability. You're done. You can remove the evasion rating if you want. You go into remove defense. You go into augment, not augment fire, augment life. Then you remove add life. So it's T1. And then what you can do is also augment defense for energy shield. And then just craft non-channeling skills and call it a day. And just call it a day. So these are the rings, pretty easy. Would not say they require a lot of investment. It's just that the bases are kind of expensive, so yeah. The amulet, last thing I want to talk about. The shield I won't be talking about just because I'm never gonna be replacing Sappho's frame. This cost me 4.5 exalts. You can do any other, it's taken as cold or lightning, is gonna be cheaper and it's going to basically do the same job. So the amulet, what I've been doing is just being greedy. You do not need the purity of fire, has reduced mana reservation. You just need to awaken or orb them together. So the most common thing that people ask is, what do you do if the awakener orb it's mana, which actually happened to me. So let's say you have an item level 86. You already did the awakener orb. I trust that a lot of people who know how to play the game, and even new players, will easily find any build guide how to craft a +2 amulet. But if you don't, stop by the stream and I will explain it. So let's say you have an item here with prefix plus the fire skill gems from. This is what you have. And let's say you also hit mana. You hit, let's say, T4 mana. And you also hit something like suffix mana regeneration rate, which is a really bad thing. And you, let's say, also hit rarity, which is also something you can remove. This is what you hit with the Awakener Orb, let's say. The worst possible scenario, right? So from here on, you keep the mana, obviously. This is what you hit. This is what you have to roll with. The worst possible scenario. So you just do remove keep prefixes. Till you hit the smallest amount of suffixes. Let's say this. This is what you hit. This is a nice mod, but I would reroll again till I hit something that I can remove. Let's say this. I hit this after like 7 rerolls. So what I would do here now is I would go into harvest once again. I would go into annul and I would remove hold. This is what I would do. And then this is one of the more expensive crafts, but if the amulet sort of breaks, this is what you have to do. So you do remove a non-influence and add an influence. This is what you have to do to save the amulet. Now there's very few crafts that it can hit that completely break the amulet. Let's say this is what you hit. The item is saved. The item is saved. You can craft life, and from there on you've saved the amulet. Now let's say you did not hit that. There is only one mod, I believe, that you can hit that completely breaks the item. And that is a prefix modifier. But I'm not even sure if it can hit the prefix. And yes, this is one of the modifiers that breaks the item. If you hit this, I am very sorry. The item is bricked. You can try to do a YOLO annul, but it's a 1 in 3. Let's hope you hit the annul. So this is obviously what you do. If you hit like the remove keep prefix and you hit something like an influence modifier, let's say you hit this, right? You don't have to remove this. You can just do the non-influence already. And if you hit this, it also breaks the item. This is complete brick. This is something that is absolutely fine. From here on, you go into harvest. You go remove fizz. You go to bench, craft life. Craft life. Oh, sorry. This was not bench. We got a bench and we craft life, right? From here on, you obviously go back. If you want to, you can just do harvest. If you want a more expensive method, you go into prefixes can't be changed, and you just do annul. From here, you obviously craft life again. And you do reroll, keep prefixes. Till you hit 3 random prefixes, any prefixes, any suffixes actually that look something like this, right? From here on, you remove the life and you just do augment life. You hit any life, it does not matter. If you want to try and hit T1 on this stage, you can. Let's say you hit something that is more acceptable, such as T4. You go back into keep prefix. And if you want to like reroll keep prefix till you find something that is removable, you can do that, or you can metacraft and remove this suffix modifier. I would personally reroll keep prefix till I hit something that is removable, or perhaps I wouldn't, perhaps I get sick and I just say like prefixes can't be changed and goodbye. So with an item with good prefixes are finished. You just have to do remove add life till you hit T1 life. So now what do you do to finish this item? Now you go into bench suffixes and you go to fire, not fire resistance but fire damage. It is very important that you craft fire damage here, because that you can't remove with fire, because there's fire here. There will be fire on the mod that you're trying to hit. So let me just find fire damage here, please. We craft fire damage and you just do augment fire, and you will hit the fire damage over time mod every single time. Now if you do not hit T1 and you're someone who wants T1, you go prefixes can't be changed. You can't craft that for some reason. Oh yes, you can. My apologies. You remove this and just go prefixes can't be changed. Scour the item. You craft fire. You go back to harvest, augment, you hit T1, remove the craft, go to resists, change the fire to cold, go to either cold or lightning, that is, and you just remove the cold. You're left with this. From there on, you can either beast craft, like, I don't know, you can craft like a aspect of the spider if that is what you want. So you craft like a aspect of the spider. I am not sure how you would go about crafting an aspect of the spider on this site, but you can. With just beast crafting, you just buy the beast and you're pretty much done. I do not know how to craft a aspect of the spider here. So my apologies. I have no clue how to craft a aspect of the spider on this site. You will just have to imagine that it is there. Yep, no clue how to craft aspect of the spider. So what I would do here is I would do augment chaos. This is acceptable, and then I would do craft aspect of the spider and the item would be done. And now with full suffixes, I would just do, let's say we have another suffix. Let's say we craft fire. And then I would just do remove add life till I hit T1 life. And I would call it a day. That is basically all the items that you can craft for this build. Will take you mostly harvest. It will take you some time, it is expensive, but at the end of the day, very worth it. But this build, and I would say my build in general has a worth of, I would say, at least over a mirror, at least in terms of currency invested in. I would say the gear is well worth over a mirror. I've farmed a lot of currency on this character, and I've farmed burials, and I've self-farmed a headhunter, but not really. I've dropped 2 doctor cards, and the rest I just bought with my currency that I had left over. And now I'm leveling a headhunter self-curse character that you can watch me play live on Twitch, link in the description. There's not really much else to talk about. I believe I explained everything. The belt, obviously very necessary. Use the belt. Flask, not mandatory, but amazing. Jewels, just buy them, do not craft them. Very expensive to craft, just buy them. If you're someone who feels lucky, then buy them and just do fossils on them until you hit something that is acceptable. As I said, I hope this video was a bit informative. As I said, I had a blast playing this character. This character is very tanky, very good at bossing. I would recommend to anyone that has and does not have currency, because it has a very steep learning curve, and you can very easily afford items if you know what you're doing. If you do not know what you're doing and you need some help on what you need to buy, what sort of items you want for this build, and if you really did not understand how I explained some of these crafting processes, then drop by on Twitch. I try to stream every day. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I try to stream every day. Drop by on Twitch, ask me your question, and I will try my best to answer it. Until then, this has been Shamsi. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hopefully will be seeing you on Twitch. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a good one, Exile.